I am also a public school teacher.
Oh, great.
And so I talk a lot to young people, people my age and younger. And a lot of my students are scared and they're more affected by not only the attacks of this administration, but the rhetoric and the rhetoric that it enables. And what never ceases to amaze me is the tremendous apathy that a lot of people my age, and I'm 32, a lot of people my age and younger seem to have toward that when it's their own children and their own students feeling this way. So my question for you is, in the face of this disillusionment, what can we do, people who are looking to organize or potentially run for office, to somehow inspire hope in the younger generation?
It's a tough question. I mean, it's not a tough question. Finding an answer to the question is tough. What I try to do, and what I try to share with people, is think about your own experiences and think about what you wanted when you sat where those students sit, and see whether or not there are differences in what you aspire, what you wanted, and what you're hearing from them. And see whether or not you can, in some way, rectify those differences that you have with them. And I think that's a tough assignment, but it's something that's got to be done. Because one thing I've learned from young people is they really want discipline. They want discipline. And a lot of times they're crying out for it. They just don't know how to tell you that they want this discipline. I had a very interesting experience about 2 weeks ago. I was speaking to my Masonic group. I'm a 33rd degree Prince Hall Mason. And we were having the council of deliverance, and I was doing the luncheon. And after the luncheon, the young man came up to me and he said, that was still at the behind the head table. He says, "Where did you put that newspaper?" And it startled me. So what the heck is he talking about? Well, it turned out that after a minute, he was a young man that was in my class. I had taught him history. But I used to teach from the newspaper. I mean, my textbook was my reference book. You know, just think about this. I was teaching during the Cuban crisis. What do I look like standing in front of a class back in, 1962? When those missiles were put down in Cuba, we were sitting in Charleston, South Carolina, the mine warfare school sitting out there, the Navy Yard, the shipyard. Those kids were worried as to whether or not Charleston was going to be attacked by these missiles. So what do if chapter 22 in my textbook is Cuba, and the newspaper headlines all about Cuba, what do I look like talking about chapter 3? And this young man remembered that. And so what I say is, when you talk to the students, really talk to them from their perspective, get out of them as much as you possibly can, and then see whether or not you've got something in your own experiences, your own background, that you can help them reconcile what it is that's going through their minds. Because you got to know that the headlines being what they are, with these young people seeing on TV what they're seeing, you have to help give them some perspective on this. Don't give up on them. For God's sake, don't do that. Don't scold them. In the name of God, don't do that. Try as best you can to say to a young person, yeah, I understand that. But let me tell you how I approach this problem and how it worked for me. I think that our young people want guidance, they want discipline, they want to know that there's some worth in them. I always try to give a young person credit for something in the question and see, can you reconcile that? It's going to be tough. Their challenge is a little bit different from the way I was growing up. When I was growing up, it was unusual to see what we see in schools today. I mean, we had fire drills. We didn't have any shooting drills, whatever they call it. Fire drills. Now you have more shooting in the school than you have anything else extraneous. So it's going to be tough. But I would just say to you, just know that they really want discipline, and see whether or not you can reconcile your viewpoints on discipline to what their anxieties are. Because it's going to be tough. But thank you so much for committing to that.